Aloha, everybody. This is Tiggy Maximus with Tiggy Maximus Talks on Spotify and YouTube. Episode 244. Well, guys, 244 episodes. 244 episodes, guys. That's a lot of content. A lot of me complaining or just reviewing food, comedy, and sports. On this episode 244, I'm going to talk about two comedy shows. One was at the Inzane Brewing in Vista. That one, I believe it was November 7th. And there was a Cappy show out in Cinkuni in, I believe it's, I guess you would say North Park. That was November 8th. And I'll probably talk about UFC and maybe I'll squeeze in some Chargers. Don't want to, kind of. But we'll see how much we get into this. So, this particular show was kind of interesting because Cackles is the one who produced the show. That's basically Victor Paz and Shane Chase, two great comedians I got to know here in San Diego. And this was a kind of like a new venue, great spot to have comedy. There's a good looking room. There's a lot of people there. I can see that Cackles has done so well since they started, and they can just make their show pretty much anywhere in San Diego. And they got great talent on the show, great lineups, great content, a lot of great laughs, and honestly, I always enjoy their production, and I don't mind bringing people. I recommend them to anyone. And so Shane Chase, I believe he got things started, and I think he was the host. But now I might have seen Al Gabby listed as the host, but I think it ended up becoming Shane. But then again, usually a host would kind of come in after each comic is up, but if I remember correctly, I think each comic that went up introduced the next comic. So in a sense, technically there was no host. But sometimes that actually works pretty well because, it does somewhat save time in a way. That if you just have the next comic just introduce the next person, and I'm pretty sure that's like a little extra responsibility. It goes pretty fast. Don't even really think about it. As opposed to trying to remember everybody's name, if that was ever really a problem. But I think it's just cool that each comic remembers one name to introduce next. So that's actually a good idea sometimes. So Shane Chase started off things. Did his he kind of went over some guidelines, and I don't remember the exact order, but I believe the first person that went up, I think it was Mazdak. Mazdak is a comedian I don't think I remember seeing here in San Diego, so he must be doing pretty well. And I know he went up on stage and he kind of talked about Um, I think he talked about Iran, Iraq, or Palestine, Israel, something like that, and um, he got a lot of people laughing actually, and I actually like his comedy, so he did pretty well with the crowd in Vista, and I want to say he was a 8.6 out of 10. Great stuff, good comedy. Um, Although he was a little peculiar after the show, but which comic isn't peculiar, right? I guess it kind of goes with it. Um, and then I believe there was a Christian Scala, and I've heard his name before, but this might be the first time I actually remembered him um, actually doing like a full set. So Christian Scala did pretty well. Um, he might have talked about dating, but then he kind of talked about his other stuff about his life. Um, Honestly, the guy is pretty funny, and everything he was saying on stage, it was just a great punchline throughout, and honestly, that guy did pretty well. I'm glad that Shane and Victor brought him on. He will be a great addition to any lineup. Um, I guess Christian Scala, let's say he's an 8.75. I think we had Alina Stone, and Lena Stone, she's pretty funny, and always a great person, and she has this great energy she brings on stage. I like that, and I think there was aspects of her set where she kind of asked the crowd which way to go, and I think one was um, I think it was something about etiquette when going to black people parties or something, or hanging out with black people, and then the other choice was um, how she wants her funeral to go, and I guess it was leaning towards black people etiquette when you're hanging out with black people. So um, I guess that got to be pretty funny because it kind of made everybody aware that they actually could relate to it because they probably hadn't done such a thing when hanging around with black people. So she did really well. I want to say that she was a 8.7 out of 10. And then I believe we had a Dan York, and Dan York talks about being unemployed and kind of made it pretty funny, and the people really liked his set. Gotta say he was an 8.6 out of 10. I believe another person that went up was Chris Angel. He talks about being tall. He does talk about dating though. And pretty much a lot of things he was talking about on stage, he did pretty well. You always can get the crowd laughing, and also, great addition to any lineup he's on as well. I want to say he was an 8.8 out of 10. And then we have Shane Chase. Um, I thought his set started off kind of weird, and I want to go into it as to why in a little bit. And it was interesting because he kind of did better after the initial first minute or two, and then I always like the stuff when he talks about his roommate situation, his threesome experience. Um, he talked about the military, and honestly, he has a lot of great jokes. I always like that about him. Um, I want to say Shane Chase. He's a 8.7 out of 10. And then I guess you would say this guy is the feature. And Al Gabby. The guy has a great comedy production under his belt. He's traveled for shows. The guy is always pretty funny for the most times I've seen him up there, and ever since I got to meet him, and ever since I got to see his set, the guy is always surefire to make people laugh. He always likes to bring up the Modern Family, the Vegas stuff. Things are different when he's younger versus when he's older. Talked about being married. But honestly, if you ever get to see Al Gabby perform, the guy does so well on stage, and I would consider him one of the best in San Diego, honestly. And I want to say Al Gabby was a 9.2 out of 10. Then we got our headliner, the birthday guy, Victor Paz, and it's really cool seeing Victor because not only is he a great photographer, but he is a great producer, and he tells a lot of great jokes, and it's always kind of cool seeing him on stage. And well, something did happen while he was up there. Even though he always tells great jokes, he had a lot of great jokes, and I always enjoy that. But the interesting part was things kind of stopped during his set because after Victor had talked about his Korean barbecue dating joke, he had to stop his set because he had to address something. And it's one of those things where it's kind of a no-no in any comedy show. It's just that you're not supposed to talk as an audience member unless you're given permission to do crowd work with the comic on stage. But the thing is, you can't talk on your own throughout the entire show. And it kind of threw some or all the comics off a little bit, and it was kind of annoying to all the comics. So there's this blonde girl with a, I guess you would say a female sailor hat, but it's like made fashionable by females. But it kind of reminds me of those really old-fashioned caps that you would wear if you were like hanging out by the train station or something, or you're working on the train. Kind of reminds me of Oliver Twist and the fashion they had back then when you wore headwear. You had those caps that you come out from like the train or come down from like coming through the streets of New York or something. And this girl had that, and I remember she wore like a short skirt and she wore like boots. Blonde girl brought her friends with her. Um, so when Victor had to address this blonde girl who was talking throughout the whole show, and one of her friends got up and left because she was so embarrassed. And I guess Victor had to kind of, he could tell, and he told her that he can see that this blonde girl was not happy with the whole show, apparently. And she got offended when she said that she didn't like the Mexican jokes that Victor told. And well, Victor is Mexican. So that was kind of puzzling because the fact that he's telling Mexican jokes and he's Mexican, it's usually a green light that it's okay to make fun of Mexicans in certain ways. But this blonde girl took offense to it. So, um, I don't know. But it got to a point where Victor had to please peacefully ask her, we can see that you're unhappy and you're free to leave. Nobody's going to take offense to it. Nobody's here to hear you talk. They're only here to see the comics, do their jokes. And this blonde girl wouldn't leave. So, the thing was, um, uh, there was a woman at the bar that came up behind the blonde girl, and I think from what I've heard was the lady had told the blonde girl that she was ruining Victor's birthday show. It's his birthday, and she's really disrupting the whole show. And the first thing that this blonde girl does, she turns around and she punches the woman, and all of a sudden both women are punching each other. And this blonde girl then gets on the edge of the stage and she's kicking at this other woman, and eventually this woman was going to stand, and then at that point her and her friends that were still there, they were going to get up and leave because at this point they can't stay there. um, and then what got even more intense was that when the blonde girl was leaving and she was saying something to the crowd, I don't know if she was trying to play a victim or something, but she just punched another woman who was sitting down with her husband on the way out the door. And then the blonde girl runs out the front door. The second lady wants to go after her. And the next thing I see was blonde girl picks up that red velvet rope, crowd barrier control stanchion. She picks it up and she's ready to launch it at the front door because she's anticipating the second woman was going to come through the door after her. But the second lady stands at the doorway. She knows that if she goes out the door, this weapon could be thrown at her. Luckily, security stepped in front of the second woman, went through the door, and told the blonde lady to put that down, which she did. But at this point, she decided to stay around because I guess she wanted to stand her ground, give her side of the story. But at this point in time, there's a lot of people in front of the Inzane Brewing, and police eventually showed up, took some statements, and I guess the two women that got hit in the face by this blonde woman filed charges. So I'm kind of curious where that's going to end up. But that was a wild scene that I saw everything unfold. Victor wanted to end the show right then and there, but the crowd encouraged him to go on, and he continued. And he finished out his set. And overall, he got some good laughs from the people, and he got a great support system, and I'm glad because, um, that was pretty wild. And the fact that, um, so Victor, I want to say he's an 8.8 out of 10 for his comedy. And the funny thing was, before the show started, I was offered to sit exactly where the blonde girl was before the blonde girl showed up, but I declined it and I sat somewhere in the back. So I just can't help but think that maybe if I had sat there, I would have prevented that fight from breaking out. So that was kind of funny. But it kind of matches the name of the place, Inzane Brewing. A lot of insane things happen. Um, that was insane. Um, Overall, I would go back. It was a great show, great venue, great spot, and honestly, I recommend that place or that comedy show to anybody. Go see a show under the Cackles banner. Go to Inzane Brewing. Go, just look up Cackles on Instagram or Facebook, and they have a bunch of shows, bunch of flyers. Go to their show. You have a great time. I recommend it. I never had a really bad time. But sometimes you might have some bonus entertainment. So, next show I went to, it was Cappy show, produced by Alex Ibarra, and this was at the Cinkuni, Cinkuni restaurant. The show is in the back patio, and the show started with Alex Ibarra as your host. He kind of went with his jokes, where I guess he talks about being a cappy opera or something, some animal, and he talks about having a great support system, but he talks about his kneecaps. Um, but he got some jokes in there. Got some good jokes, but overall, crowd was kind of chill, and I want to say Alex Ibarra 7 out of 10. The next person that went up was Michael Hall. Michael Hall was pretty funny. He got some really great jokes, and the crowd liked him a lot. And uh, yeah, he talked about being from Air Mesa. He called me out, um, that a lot of the people in Air Mesa look like me. That's probably true. But great set from Michael Hall, and I want to say he was 8.5 out of 10. I believe the next person that went up was, I want to say it was Bob Hansen, and Bob Hansen always brings the energy to the stage. Um, he does a lot of kicks, and then I think he pulled a muscle. um, so, talks about dating, talks about weddings, talks about his dogs. Overall, a great set. A lot of people were laughing, and I want to say he was 8.75. Next up was Connor Costello. Guy was pretty funny. He got quite a few people laughing during his set, and then I think at one point he wanted to try this lighted ornament. I guess it was it's supposed to represent the Cappy capybara. So it was lighted up a few times, but then it didn't light up when he wore it around his neck. But it lighted up when it was in one of those, what's it called? One of those swinging chairs. It's usually like a chair that's made of like bamboo or something, and it just hangs from like a metal chain. So yeah. But you know, Connor got quite a few good laughs from the people. I want to say it was 8.5 out of 10. And then you got your headliner, Alan Henderson. Has great jokes, doing crowd work. Got to know this one couple in the crowd. It's always pretty awesome when he does some jokes and then kind of just goes into crowd work, getting to know how people met each other, and overall great set from Alan. I want to say he was an 8.75 out of 10. It's a good spot. The place has like sushi and also Italian food as well, so next time I go I'll probably try out the food. Just want to tell you, UFC 322 took place in, I believe it was Madison Square Garden, New York. There were a lot of knockouts from what I saw, and then the last two fights were the championship fights. Those went to decision, but they were dominant performances. So we started off watching Benoit Saint Denis, and he knocked out Beneil Darouche first round, and if I remember correctly, yeah, it was pretty much Darouche took a blow to the head and then slowly crumbled to the mat, and yeah, I think he was like, he face planted and his arms were spread out, and that's how he was laying on the mat. I think that was the one. And then good win for Saint Denis, and he's just climbing up the rankings at I want to say 155. So next we have a fight between I believe it was we got Morales versus Leon Edwards. That one, Carlos Prates versus Leon Edwards. That one was pretty good. I mean, you got the former welterweight champion in there, but Carlos Prates from the Fighting Nerds, man, he is something, and he got a down the middle strike to the chin and chest of Leon Edwards, and that completely knocked him out. And that was an impressive win for Carlos Prates, and he could be getting a title shot very, very soon at welterweight. So that was just amazing. And then there was a fight between Michael Morales and Sean Brady, and Michael Morales, he has just this amazing arsenal of strikes, and he made Sean Brady succumb to his striking. So Sean Brady crumbled, and Michael Morales is kind of the real deal. He's finished almost everybody. And then we got our co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko against Zhang Weili for the flyweight championship for the women. And Valentina and Zhang Weili, they are both champions of their own division. Zhang Weili was the champion of the strawweights, but she came up in weight, wanted to go for a second championship of gold, but Valentina was just so much better than Zhang Weili. Didn't think there was a time when Zhang kind of like had the upper hand at any point. It was pretty much all Valentina. Striking, wrestling, kicking, whatever. It was like 5-0 sweep. So Valentina keeps her championship. And then in the main event, you got Islam Makhachev. He dominated Jack Maladalena to win the 170 championship. Great fights. There, guys. Bye. Booyaka.